We start on developments in Washington. Donald Trump aimed a mob of supporters like a loaded cannon at the U.S. Capitol. Those are the words that House Democrats used in their legal brief filed today before next week's impeachment trial. It's their most detailed case yet for why Trump should be convicted for his role in the January 6th siege of the Capitol. Bloomberg News congressional reporter Billy House joins us now with more. Billy, the Democrats used some fairly evocative language to recount the day's events. How effective is that in an impeachment trial?
Well, the jurors in the Senate impeachment trial will be the 100 senators themselves, many of whom were in the Capitol that day and saw and even feared some of the events that were taking place. But the arguments filed today by both sides with the Senate kind of fine-tune what we've already known their arguments will be, and essentially the 9 House impeachment managers saying that Trump's responsibility for the events January 6th is unmistakable.
And of course, when you look at the Trump team's defense, it does not repeat or attempt to defend President Trump's claims of widespread election fraud or the illegitimate result, even though that's exactly the reason why his supporters stormed the Capitol. Why is there this disconnect?
Well, it doesn't do that in a direct way, but they do make that argument that a reasonable person could have taken Trump's comments in his remarks January 6th as suggesting there were problems indeed with the election still, and that a reasonable person might have responded by saying they should, go to their elected members of Congress and do something about that. But essentially, their defense for his words and actions that day before the mob stormed the Capitol is that he had First Amendment rights to say things such as that the election may not have turned out the way it should have, and that, in fact, the whole impeachment process was a snap judgment without any House hearings, et cetera.
Okay, so to go back to your point on how the Trump team's defense really centers on that idea that his words are protected by the First Amendment, and also on the idea that the Senate has no power to try a former president. What is likely to be the strongest defense that they can use in the actual trial, do you think?
Well, what we've already seen in that sort of test vote in the Senate is that all but 5 of the Republican senators voted in favor of a motion to dismiss the case because essentially that he's a former president and that the Supreme Court Chief Justice would not even be presiding because of that. So that kind of is where the Trump lawyers are focusing a lot of their efforts on, is that the Senate has no business at this point evaluating whether or not to convict and bar Trump from future office.
Okay, so once the trial does start next week, is there any reason at all for Democrats to think that a trial will change the mind of 45 Republicans who are intent on seeing this impeachment trial not go through?
I think realistically, many of them are experienced trial lawyers themselves or constitutional lawyers, and they know that it likely will not play out that way. Yet, they do plan on presenting evidence, including a lot of the video we've already seen and perhaps some emotional, personal comments they picked up on tape and hoping it might turn the tide. But it's very unlikely, and I think they realize that Trump will be convicted.
All right, President Trump's legal team had a makeover this weekend after the first group of lawyers declined to take up the case. What do we know about his new attorneys?
One interesting aspect that really hasn't been reported by anybody is that Bruce Castor of Pennsylvania is actually the cousin of Stephen Castor, who was one of the House Republican Judiciary staff members leading the impeachment defense the first time go around. So it's a small world where cousins, their fathers or brothers, are involved in the 2 separate impeachment trials. David Schoen, the other lawyer, is a Atlanta-based lawyer and has his own reputation down there for taking some strident and strong positions that don't necessarily flow with the common.
Okay, so those are the characters or the folks who we're going to be hearing from the most when the impeachment trial begins. Walk us through step by step what the process for Monday's impeachment trial will look like. How will it unfold?
Well, like with most trials, the 9 House impeachment managers will begin to make their case. We understand they've each been assigned various areas to go into the well of the Senate to stand up there and make that argument for that aspect of the case. I don't have a rundown yet on which of the 9 will speak to what, but we know they are led by Jamie Raskin, a constitutional lawyer himself and a member of Congress from Maryland, and that's how we'll begin.
All right, so the action begins on Monday. Billy, House, thank you so much.